Welcome back to Eye on South Asia. All right, let's move back up to New York.
That's right.
So,
Seems that we can't just come out of New York. It's
yeah,
New
we
York
just
after
can't
New York
help
after
it.
New York.
But it's not that peachy news, though. Desi workers in New York are underpaid and overworked. So,
Wait a minute. Is it in New York only?
apparently so.
I think it's everywhere.
Well,
I think it's everywhere. But no,
think so?
anyway, actually, yeah, okay, to talk about New York, and it is a fact, the story is coming out of New York. It has to do with Desi workers in the New York. And this Desi workers, it's not only Indian Desi workers, it's Bangladeshi, Pakistani,
South
and
Asian
Indian, South
in
Asian.
general.
So that's what
Yeah.
they say. South Asian workers are overworked and underpaid.
yes, there's this group called Desis Rising Up and Moving, called
Drum. Right.
for short, and they've released a report in July talking about how there are several surveys that are part of this report, and it's just talking about how the South Asian workers are feeling underpaid, often harassed,
Right.
and working in exploited conditions. So mainly they're referring to areas of domestic work and retail workers. Actually, retail is brought up quite a bit in this study.
Well, retail workers, I think their issue has been in the spotlight for many years. And it has nothing to do, or it has maybe very little to do with Indian or South Asian workers. In China, the problem has been going, I think even in the US, you know, there are some companies, and they have been, I think, highlighted in the media in the past. So retail workers, especially workers working in a clothing factory or like that, they've been always overworked and underpaid.
Absolutely. And some of those issues are just the general ones that we've always been hearing. They're not allowed to take breaks.
Yeah.
They get little to no benefits, no health insurance, no PTO, no sick days. So, but coming back to the salary element of it, the South Asians in general have been earning about $5 less than the average New Yorker in the same occupation.
That's right.
And sometimes this discrepancy has been going up to about $16 or $17. And that's quite shocking, I would say.
That's a lot. That's
Yeah.
a lot. But also another interesting, you know, fact of this situation is the whole article is that they are saying that their study and experience over the last 12 years, and I think they have come to a conclusion that after 9/11, this situation has become more and more serious because South Asian workers are looked upon after 9/11 as kind of in a derogatory manner, and that may be one of the reasons, or has a very slight percentage of it, that they are underpaid.
Yeah.
Whether it's a $5 less, or just like you say, could be $16, $17, $20 less than the average New Yorker.
Right, and that's depending on the actual occupation.
True.
I think it would have been interesting if this report and survey had been done before and after 9/11 to really see a comparison.
Well, I think
But-
overall survey says South Asian workers that been interviewed, you know, in this article, they have said, you know, that they are definitely underpaid, and they have given their reasons also, and their stories also, where they work and how many hours they work, or what kind of work conditions that they go through that, and they are definitely underpaid in those conditions.
Exactly. So what is Drum going to do with this report? Well, they have nearly 200 surveys, and they're going to use this report as a tool to promote the South Asian workers' rights on a national scale and also on a global level. So they want to launch a Global South Asian Migrant Workers Alliance, which will bring together undocumented laborers from all these countries, North America, Middle East, Australia, Europe. So they're really trying to use this data to fight for these workers' rights.
Right.
So we really hope that something good can come out of this, because, I mean,
Well, one
the
is
discrepancy
that,
is shocking.
that the association Drum, the organization, needs a lot of recognition. They need to come out more and more, and then be part of media, and then, you know, relate their stories to media all over. And I think South Asian workers, they also need to send their stories, or let Drum know that what is actually happening to them.
Yes.
Only then they will be able to create an awareness, and somebody will take action.
Exactly. I think this study needs to be done on kind of a quantifiable scale, like
Right.
surveys, as well as getting these individual stories. I think that
Exactly.
would really help their cause.
Yep.
So, all right, let's move back to India.
Mhm.
Well, an overall Indian culture thing. It's with Indian women changing with globalization and time. So, what do you think about Indian women changing with globalization?
Well, Indian women changing with the times and globalization, meaning Indian women are more and more involved. You see more and more them in the corporate world. They are into, you name it, in any field, whether it's information technology, IT, other fields. They're there now, and the number of Indian women in different corporate fields been, I think, going up and up. And that's why these Indian women become more global. It's not typical Indian woman who stays at home, looks after kids and family. Such is not a case anymore.
Yes, and there's so many challenges that come with getting into the corporate field.
Yep.
And some of those have been highlighted by a novelist, Kavita Daswani, who has been writing several trilogies. One is Bombay Girl, and she talks about, the new Indian woman and how she's kind of liberated from these old world problems and has stepped into a whole new world of problems. So instead of trying to fit into the traditional ways of life, they're now encountering things such as broken marriages, live-in relationships, and all of those even financial hardships that come from all this additional responsibility. So
Desi Girl is just not Desi anymore. Desi
Yes,
Girl has
she's
become
global.
a global girl. Right?
yeah, she's global.
Right.
So, well,
Speaking of Indian women changing.
speaking of Indian women changing,
Right.
and not in a good way in this
I know.
case, we have a story about a teacher named Lina Sinha who was convicted of having sex with her 13-year-old student. And this student is now 24-year-old, and he's a police officer. And back in 2007, he came forward, took a stand to describe his 10-year relationship with this teacher.
Right. Now, his identity has not been revealed yet. I mean, he works for NYPD. And then when he was a 13-year-old, that's when a relationship developed. She was a teacher at the time, and I think she became a principal of that school in the New York City, which is actually owned by her parents. Lina Sinha's parents, whose names I have not seen anywhere, but school is owned by her parents, and she was a principal in that school, teacher and a principal, and she developed a relationship with then 13-year-old child, who actually now is part of NYPD.
Yes.
And their relationship, I think, came at a point where he decided to leave her. And then she actually filed a false complaint against him. And that's when he went to the court and filed a complaint against her. And then all this thing came out that she actually, had sex with him when he was 13-year-old.
Yes.
And that's illegal, having sex with minor.
Exactly. And now the latest development here is that Lina Sinha will surrender. And
She has actually.
She has surrendered.
She has surrendered.
And will begin serving her sentence up to 7 years.
She has begun, that's right.
Yes.
Up to 7 years. From 2007 to 2012, when this case was actually going in the court, she waited too long, and she thought she would get away with it. Her defense lawyer tried to portray her character in the court as like, she has helped many students. She has been a good teacher and good principal in the past, and so on and so forth. But judge actually said nothing else, nothing matters, because having sex with a minor is illegal.
Yes.
And what was she doing in the last 5 years? According to her website, that she was, I think, keeping herself busy in tennis and in jogging and doing little community work.
Okay. So at the same time, there have been allegations that she had been engaging in this sort of relationship with another student who was even younger, 12 years old.
Right.
So
it is a very disturbing story, let's put it that way.
Yes.
I mean, we have heard, many teachers, I think, throughout the country. So many stories have come out in the last year or 2 years, Bhavna, that I can tell you. But Indian teacher and also principal of the school, which is owned by her parents. And she also said in the court that, look, you know, my parents, I've used my family's wealth and the money to come this far, and we have done well. We have this school, and if given a chance, you know, I could do more for kids and education. But judge finally said, no, nothing works.
Right.
Because one is, it was illegal to have sex with the underage kid and to file a false complaint against somebody.
Exactly.
That is also a crime.
Exactly, because for a child that's been essentially abused for over 10 years.
That's right.
I mean, it's mind-blowing just to imagine the effects, you know, that would have. And but it is an unfortunate trend that seems to be happening with teachers and these relationships with students. You know,
it's like it's unstoppable.
Yeah.
Every now and then, a story comes out,
right?
And it's
usually, I mean, I've never seen it with an Indian teacher. This is the first time, and that's quite shocking.
The only thing I like to say in the end, teachers are supposed to teach, but in this case, I think teachers are the one who just don't learn.
Exactly.
They just don't get it, and every now and then a story comes out. It's like, well, where were you when the other stories came out? You knew it was illegal, and you were still, you know, doing this.
Right.
So these are the teachers who don't learn.
Yeah, and I think for parents, it's very important to really keep open communication with their child.
True.
Because a lot of this stuff happens when, you know, communication is closed off to the parents, and the stuff continues, you know, and for several years.
That's
and it's just devastating to even imagine. So
well, it's a sad story because Indian teacher is involved in that case, but anyway.
Yes, hopefully, you know, I mean, she's come forward and surrendered, so
she had no
the
choice.
healing can
She had
begin
no choice.
at least, yes. So that's all the stories that we have for this week.
Right.
And we'll be back next week, same time, same place on Crossings TV. So you can also check us out on YouTube and Facebook. Just type in Eye on South Asia. So until next week, I'm Bhavna Vanan, signing off.
And I'm Sanjeev Pandya. See you all next week.